Hello, everybody. Welcome to Out of the Ordinary. Today is our number one podcast, and we have one of my very, very close friends, Christo Dehn. And Christo is the author and writer through an amazing experience and journey he has actually experienced. And his book is called Gateways to the Highest Truth. I've read this book probably 5 to 6 times, and I'm going to continue reading it because there's things that you read and you go through it again and again, and there's things that you find that you don't remember it being there, or you just missed it, or you overlooked it. So this book is an amazing book. You can get in touch with me and I can get these books. I think Andre's selling Christo's selling these books, I think, for about $25. Is that by right?
Yeah, $20 is fine.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a history on Christo. So Christo and I met at the Mind Body Spirit Expo in about around 6 years ago. So I'll never forget the moment that we actually walked down the aisle and I saw this tall guy staring straight at me, and we just gave eye contact straight away. And I said, I need to go and see this guy. I don't know who he is, but we need to go. And I remember asking him, I said, what do you do? And he just said, I'm just sending the message on my journey. And I knew nothing about him. I knew nothing about what the book was. And I said, how much is the book? And he said, $20. And I said, well, fine, I'll buy it. So that was 6 years ago. We had a good little talk. He ended up being a local boy, so he's not too far from me. And we've been staying in touch for a very, very long time. And when I decided to start doing these podcasts, Christo was on the top of my list. A little story about Christo is that Christo is actually a survivor of that bad word C. I don't class cancer as a categorized disease. It's just let's just say it's a disease that not many people know about and don't know how to cure it. I believe that Christo has the gift to cure himself, which he did. But I don't want to say too much because I believe Christo's got an amazing story that I would like Christo to actually share on his journey to his little cancer epidemic. So I'm going to pass you over to Christo. Christo is actually here with his wife, Yuri. She's actually a reflexologist, aromatherapist. Tarot reader and a access bar, which I haven't heard about, but we will definitely have to know a bit more about the access bar. And she does, what else do you do? And she does Reiki as well. So we've got a complete package here tonight.
Multi-talented people.
Yeah. So Christo, we all would like to know your journey on how you actually first diagnosed with, what you actually...
How I found
how
out
it actually
I was
found
sick.
out, yeah.
Well, that started when I was 19 years old. I had just finished high school and I'd been into my first... I was working in high school in a part-time job, picture framing, to get money to buy petrol for my car, basically. And after I left high school, I continued in that same job, and it was only down here in Castle Hill, picture frame. That's what I was doing. One Easter, which is a bit strange because all these things happened to me on Easter, which is a big timing issue. I started to get chronic headaches, and I mean chronic headaches. I've never felt any pain like it. I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming in agony because my head was pounding. I was rushed to the emergency at Windsor Hospital twice, and I had some dickhead doctor ask me what drugs I was on. In the end, these headaches persisted for a month. I went to 3 different doctors, and they all said, you've got a virus, or you've got chronic migraines or some bullshit. And I said to Mum one day, I was leant down in the hallway of the house to pat my cat, and I passed out. And Mum sort of kicked me and woke me up, said, what are you doing on the floor? I said, look, I really need to go and see my old family doctor down at North Epping, where I was born, where I grew up. So after a month of these excruciating headaches, my eyes were pointing in two different directions, and at the middle of the night I'd be woken up with these extreme migraines. I was driving my car. I had one doctor tell me that my virus had loosened the muscles in my eye. So I was driving and working with an eye patch. I looked like Long John Silver driving my car like this because I couldn't see where I was going. And one day at work, I said, Mum, you've got to take me down to see the doctor I grew up with. I walked into her office and she said immediately, I'm sending you to Westmead Hospital for a scan right away. I went down to that, had that scan that day, came back home that night, went to work the next morning. She rang me at work first thing and said, Christo, I've got to see you and your mother right away. And I said, why? Is there something wrong with my blood test? She said, no, I just need to see you and your mother right away. So I got her to drive down and drive me down to Epping to the doctor. And we walked into her office and she said, look, there's no easy way to tell you this, but you've got a brain tumour. Get to Westmead Hospital now because they're waiting to operate. It was that serious. My tumour was what they call a pineal germinoma, which means around the pineal gland, which is in the centre of your brain, the tumour had grown around the gland and was about the size of a small plum. And this tumour had pushed against the spinal fluid course in my brain. So your spinal fluid goes up your spine, around your brain and back down your spine. Well, my tumour had blocked those spinal fluid glands. So the fluid was going up, but it wasn't going back down. So I had two massive sacs of spinal fluid growing in my brain, pushing my brain out against my skull. And that was what the excruciating headaches in the eyes in the different direction were caused by. So that day, I was rushed down to Westmead Hospital. They put me on a gurney and put me straight into surgery. That first operation, I had a shunt put in. A shunt is like a drainage tube they put under the skin from my skull down in through my neck and into my stomach to drain all that spinal fluid away. I still have it today. It's not worth taking the shunt out. It's too much trouble. So the problem is when you start draining that spinal fluid, your brain starts moving in your skull. So I was 3 days in Westmead Hospital screaming in agony while my brain was coming back into its normal shape inside my skull. So that first operation took me off the road for 2 weeks. So then after that, I had the scan which revealed the tumour in its full size. Now, a pineal germinoma is very, very, very rare. There were only 88 cases worldwide and only 3 in Australia. And the doctors had no idea how to treat it because they had no records of anybody surviving it. So they said to me, oh, you can have radiation or chemo or both if you like. It's up to you. And I said, well, who the hell am I to decide what therapy I have? You're the doctors. You tell me what I should do. And anyway, by this time, the first operation I had, something happened to me in that operation where I'd changed. Something had moved out and something had come in. And even the day after my operation, my brother came to the hospital to see me. And after he left my room, he said to my mum, he said, I don't know who that is in there. That's not my brother. So he knew immediately that something had changed. Something was different. That some other entity had taken what I was. Anyway, what it boiled down to was that a higher aspect of myself had moved in while a lower aspect of myself had moved out. Anyway, the doctors said, we don't know how to treat this. It's your choice. So 2 weeks later, I said, I'm not going to have any treatment because whatever had happened to me during the operation, I knew I wasn't going to die. And they said, well, if you don't have any therapy, you're going to be dead in 6 months. So my mum said, look, let's take him home and we'll talk to him about it. So we went home. Mum and Dad would say, you've got to do something, you've got to have some therapy. And I said, look, I'm not going to die, so don't worry about it. But they insisted that I do something. So I said, all right, I will do radiation therapy. I'm not doing chemotherapy. I'm not having my body pumped full of chemicals. So for your sake, I'll do radiation therapy. So we organised with Westmead Hospital a radiation regime, and I had 5 days a week for 6 weeks radiation therapy. It was the highest dosage that you were allowed to have at that stage. This is 25 years ago. So for 5 days a week for 6 weeks, I went down there and lay on the table and had this radiation therapy. My hair fell out, my body drained away. It destroys your body. But the one thing, I could smell something very strong when I was having this radiation therapy. And I said to the nurse one day, what is that smell when the radiation's on me? She said, can you smell that? And I said, yeah, it's a horrible smell. She said, that's ozone gas. And only 0.01% of the population can smell that. But what I noticed after my brain surgery, my sense of smell was so clear, so precise. And even today, my sense of smell is incredible. They must have touched something in my brain that activated my sense of smell. But I could smell that ozone gas during the radiation therapy. Anyway, so that radiation therapy devastated me. So from that, I still had the tumour inside. So I had the operation that I had to look at the tumour, because the tumour was around my pineal gland. Doctors don't know what the pineal gland does, so they couldn't remove it because they just don't know what the result would be. So all they did, I had an 8-hour operation. They cut a big hole in the top of my head, and they went in. All they did was take a biopsy to check what sort of tumour it is. When they took the biopsy, they couldn't figure out what sort of tumour it was. So they sent it around the world to all these different laboratories to find out what kind of tumour it was. It comes back, somebody in Europe said, well, I think it's a pineal germinoma. Now, the unusual thing about this is that it's usually a tumour that's found in men's testicles. So I said, well, what does that mean? I'm a dickhead. Is that what you're trying to tell me? I'm a dickhead. So they didn't know how to treat it, and that was the problem with giving treatment to me. But in the end, I went on a crusade. I said, something's happened to me in the first operation. I know this is meant to happen, and now I have to find out why. So I went searching for answers. I tried aromatherapy. I tried past life regression hypnosis, which I found very helpful. I tried psychic surgery. Okay, I didn't find that helped me, but I tried every possible natural therapy under the sun until finally we found a course in parapsychology. Now, parapsychology is the study of the paranormal, okay? Psychic healing, aura balancing, past life regression, but mostly meditation. So this basically taught me how to meditate properly. Now, meditation, by definition, purely means focusing the mind. So there are thousands of different forms of meditation, but meditation is what saved me. I learned to focus my mind and my energy and my power into my body and help me balance my auras and revitalize my body with energy. Anyway, I'd been doing this parapsychology course for 1 year, and Easter, the year after, I got very ill again. And all the energy drained out of my body, the blood just sank away from my veins, and I couldn't do anything. I could barely walk, I could barely drive. So they put me back in Westmead Hospital for a week to take all these sorts of tests on me, and they could not find a thing wrong with me. Anyway, at the end of a week, I said to my mother, look, they're not doing anything here for me in hospital. Take me home. I want to go to class on Saturday morning. Because in the meantime, my mother and I had started this course in parapsychology, which, like I say, teaches you meditation and all these wonderful things. I didn't want to miss my class on Saturday morning. So she took me out of Westmead Hospital straight down to class on Saturday morning. Anyway, driving to the class, I left my body. She was driving the car. I was in the passenger seat, dead to the world. I left my body and I had the classic near-death experience. I went down the white tunnel of light and I emerged on a psychic spiritual platform. And in front of me was an ocean of unconditional love. And immediately I said to myself, oh shit, I've died. I've screwed up my purpose for coming here and I've died. And a voice came to me and said, if you choose to come now, you may, and nothing will be held against you. Because I was feeling guilty for dying too early. And I thought about my family, my brother, my mum and dad, my nephew. Again, the voice came, if you choose to come now, you may, and nothing will be held against you. So I thought, yeah, but hang on. I know I've come to earth to do something. I've come here for a purpose. I'm not ready to go. And then the voice a third time came, if you choose to come now, you may, and nothing will be held against you. But if you want to go back, that's also okay, because earth is a realm of free will and choice. And in that instant, I thought, well, yes, I haven't finished what I came here to do. And in that instant, it was like, whoosh, and I came back into my body in my mum's car and I was full of energy again and full of life. And I turned to mum and I said, I just spoke to God and God said I can do whatever I want. And that was the experience that tipped the balance for me. I understood that death is an illusion. When you pass over, there's no such thing as oblivion. Life goes on. That spiritual realm is the true existence of life, not this physical realm. This physical realm, we are here to finish what we're supposed to do before we let it go and move on to the true world. And that was what sent me on the full spiritual path. So we continued on to class that morning and I got into class and full of beans. I said, I spoke to God and he said I can do whatever I want. And then that was it. That was when my life began again.
Can you tell me a little bit back where you said your brother said it wasn't you?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
He said to mum and dad, I don't know who that is, but that's not my brother. So he could see right away that the soul that he'd grown up with was not the same soul that he was speaking to in the hospital. And like I say, it's not that I was a different person. It's just that a higher aspect of myself that he'd never known moved in. You know what I mean? It's like maturing a bit. So, people talk about walk-ins. Well, a walk-in is basically when one soul in the body decides they've had enough, and instead of dying, another soul moves in and that soul moves away. And that's a completely different soul. But in my case, it was a higher aspect of myself coming in to replace the lower aspect of myself. You know what I mean? But he didn't know that part of me. That was the first time he'd experienced that. So that's why to him it was a completely different person.
So what happened after you got to the hospital? You were actually going to school.
Yeah.
And that's when you fell asleep.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of when you actually did see the light and so forth? Can you give us I'm very drawn to that sort of, that experience.
It's a very powerful experience. And like I say, there is nothing to fear when you die. There is only unconditional love. I'll tell you, Del, when I was learning to meditate, I was reading a lot of books about Lobsang Rampa and things, and I was reading about astral traveling. Okay, astral traveling is when you're sleeping or when you meditate, and your astral body actually lifts out of your body and goes on journeys around the world or around the street or around the house. You can go wherever you like. Well, I had this amazing astral traveling dream one night, which it was like watching a movie, and I remember it vividly. I was flying over this countryside, but I knew it wasn't Earth. It was in the astral plane. And it must have been a lower level, because there's different levels of the astral plane, okay? the lower levels are occupied by souls who have passed over but do not understand that they have passed over. And I was flying around over these people, and I was flying, and all these people were walking around. I was talking to, why don't you fly? I can fly. You can fly. But they didn't see me because it was as if they were looking straight through me, but I could see them. And I'd fly over a stadium, and there was nothing happening in the stadium, yet all these people were there shouting and cheering for their favourite teams because in their astral minds they were watching a game. And I could understand that these souls, some of them pass over and don't realise that they're dead. And that's why your guides can come, and later when you're ready to realise it, can help you pass over. And that's when I realised there are different levels of consciousness. So that to me was a very powerful experience.
That's very special.
Yeah.
So moving forward, what happened after you went to school? You did some travelling?
Yeah, look, after about a year at the parapsychology course, Mum and I were always looking for spiritual development courses and things. And Mum was reading the Mind, Body, Spirit magazine or some magazine, and she saw this advertisement for a pilgrimage to the south of England. So basically the pilgrimage was following the Archangel Michael ley line from London down through the south of England to Land's End. So Mum booked her and I to go on this spiritual pilgrimage. And this ley line is like I told you, the Archangel Michael ley line. So it's one of the most powerful ley lines in the world. And it's amazing because on that ley line are built all these churches directly on the ley line. Now, the Christians didn't know about ley lines, but why did they build these churches precisely on the ley lines? Because when the invading Christians came to the early English countryside, instead of wiping out the existing religion, they integrated it. So instead of saying your religion is bad, they said, no, let's integrate our religions. So they took the ancient religions of the native English people and helped integrate it into the Christian thing. So, Stonehenge and all these stone circles, well, there's a string of stone circles that are on this Archangel Michael ley line because the ancient Druids knew these energy points. So you find that all these churches were built on ancient Druidic sites because they wanted to integrate the two religions. And those points are so powerful that when you go to those points and actually sit and meditate and tap into them, it can expand your auric field into the cosmic realms. That's the only way I can explain it. And that was the first journey that really opened my eyes to the true meaning of life. Because once you go to these sacred sites and feel the potency of them, you don't realize how much spirit there is. And I understood that Europe and England is a very angelic energy, whereas Australia is a very elemental earth energy. Completely different ends of the spectrum. Australia is like the mother of the world. Ayers Rock is the solar plexus of the earth. The spleen chakra of the earth. It's orange, like the spleen chakra. So it's a very earthing energy, and that's why the Aboriginal religion is all about the earth. We belong to the earth mother. Whereas Europe is up in the throat, the third eye chakra, and it's very spiritual, completely different energy. So those going on that spiritual journey through England, and later we went on another journey into France, helped me realize the angelic realms and how strongly they flow in the earth and through us, of course.
What were you feeling when you were there?
A new world opened up to me, because to me it was opening my eyes to a completely different vibration. My mother does automatic writing, and she communicates with Mary. Mary is her spirit guide who writes through her. She sits there with a pad, she writes. And she had a very spiritual experience in Glastonbury. In Glastonbury, there was a massive cathedral there that burned to the ground. But Glastonbury is actually the heart chakra of the world. And she had an extremely spiritual experience there in the Mary Chapel, which is below ground. It's like a subterranean chapel where God came to her and said, I am that I am. And that's where she had her main experience. I had my main experience in St. Paul's Cathedral, which is closer to London. In St. Paul's Cathedral, in the centre of the cathedral, there's a big copper disc about 1.5 meters round. I stood on this copper disc and this beam of energy came down through me, straight through me and into the earth. And then I sort of sat to the side to sort of take the weight off my feet and take in the energy. And whew, I was out of my body again. And I don't know how long I was away, but again I came back with a whoosh. And my mum sitting next to me heard the whoosh. So it shows you how potent some of these sacred sites are. And it's not important for everybody to visit these sites, but for some people it is. It depends why you're here. For me, it was important because that's part of my mission here on earth, is to help visit and activate these points on earth. And everyone will find their own experience in these points. Mm-hmm. That helps explain it.
Mm-hmm. So did you go back and get the any scans or anything after to see where?
Yes. Yeah. So 12 months after the initial, 12 months after my relapse, I had to go back and have a final scan to see how the tumour was going. Now,
so to interrupt, that was when did you do the travelling?
So I did the travelling. I can't remember.
Was that before or after?
That was after I'd gone back for the checkup.
Okay, yeah. We'll go for the checkup.
So I got the check. When I went back for the checkup, which is after my second visit in the hospital, I had a final scan. Well, not a final scan. I was supposed to go for periodic scans to check on the progress of the tumour. And the last checkup I did, which was about 18 months after the first operation, I went for my MRI scan at Westmead Hospital, and the surgeon's office was across the road. So we went over to get the results of the MRI scan. And Mum and I walked into his office, sat down, and he just didn't say anything. And I said, well, what's the story? What's going on? He said, I said, well, what's happening with the tumour? What's going on? He said, it's gone. So it had literally shrunk away from the size of a plum down to gone. He couldn't explain it. Nobody could explain it. But I knew exactly why it had done it. Because I learned the ultimate truth about cancer, Del. And the ultimate truth is about cancer and all other disease, they are nothing but a messenger. They're a messenger for you to understand there is something you're not understanding. And when you understand what that message is, it will go away. It's like the postman. He comes to your house, he delivers the letter, then he goes away. If you can understand what the message of your disease is, it's done its job and it can go away. And that's what I learned about cancer. It's there as a messenger, nothing more. All disease is.
So would you say, like for my experience, we won't go into my experience, but just basically how I was running a very successful business in what I did in construction, and I actually hurt my back. And I hurt my back that bad that actually I was told at the hospital that I was never ever to do that again, and I would have to do something different. So my wife and I just sat there and cried, and I thought, it's all I ever know what to do. So then I sat there and I thought, what are we going to do, Jen? We've got bills and so forth. We just did not know what to do. And so I sat on that couch for about 7 weeks. I had sheriffs coming to my door. I had bills piling up. We were just running away from it. We weren't answering phone calls. And we got to a stage where, the house was ready to go. and the kids were looking at the window. I remember the kids being small, looking out the window and saying, "Who are these people looking at your truck, writing all the car number plates and all the machinery down?" I said, "Oh, it's okay, baby. It's okay." To this day, my kids are still scarred and very, very cautious on how they spend their money, which is a learning circle for them. But with me, I actually, when I hurt my back and all these things were going on, I actually called the one person that I actually always went to, and she actually pushed me away. She actually said, "Find somebody local." So I was totally traumatized. I said, while I'm down, I'm getting another boot to the gut. So then what I did was I actually went through the phone to try to find another naturopath, just find out, what they can do for me. And that, I was drawn to this one person. One person. There was so many naturopaths. It was just this one person. And I said, no, I don't like the look of her. Kept going across. I kept going back to her. Anyway, I went back to her and I saw her, and then I made a booking to go and see her. But this is another story. But to cut the story short, I actually went to see her, and she helped me on a basic level, but it was the room that she was in.
Yep.
They did Reiki. They did all these spiritual things. And I'm sitting there waiting in the waiting room, and I'm going, what are all these on this whiteboard? I don't know what they are, but I want to be part of this. I'm seeing crystals in little things, and I'm going, oh, man, I love this stuff. I don't know what it is. So then I said to the lady, who's doing all this? She goes, oh, there's another lady called Vicky. She's in another room. She does all this. Yeah. And I said, man, I need to talk to her. So then when I was finished, I actually waited, and she came through, and then we had a chat. She goes, do you want to do a healing? I said, what's a healing? And then we did the healing, and then I went, wow, like she's working on my head, and she's working on my feet, and my head's just ready to explode. I'm going, there's only one person in this room. She's on my feet. Who is on my head? And then she's going, your grandfather's coming through. Your grandmother loves you. She's hugging you now. I'm just going, what does all this mean? Get me out of here. And I'm running. I'm like, get me out. So I'm sitting there, and I thought, and then that night I'm just sitting there and going, I've got to do this. I have to do this.
Good.
So then I go into the Mind Body Spirit Expo, and then I go into the Mind Body Spirit Expo, and then there's this lady, and she's drawing. Anyway, she's drawing, and then she's going, oh, do you want a drawing? Yeah, I can do a reading, and then I can do it. Anyway, she goes, oh, you're very special. You need to do shamanic healing. You used to be a shaman before, and a healer in this. I'm going, what is a healer? What is a shaman? What is all this stuff? And I'm just going, what? Anyway, and then I think that year I met Christo, and I just went, what's going on here? So I think you need to be kicked down, slow down, and then that's what you're basically saying.
Exactly right. The way I describe my illness getting to such a bad point is that your guides are always with you, okay? And if you're not, put it this way, you come to Earth with a contract. You come to Earth as a baby with a contract. I'm here to do this, and this. If you don't follow that plan, that's where illness will come and slap you in the face. Mm-hmm. To me, this is the best way I can describe it. Your guides will give you a little tap on the shoulder if you're heading in the wrong direction. And then if you ignore that tap, they'll give you a bit of a shove. Oh, what was that? Oh, and then you ignore that. Then they'll give you a boot in the ass. Oh, and then if you ignore that, they'll take a big piece of 2x4 and they'll go smack straight in your face. And to me, my cancer was that smack in the face with the 2x4. Mm-hmm. And that was to me what cancer is. It's a teacher. It's a lesson. It's a messenger. Says you are not doing what you came here to do. If you don't change your way, you will die because you're wasting your time here. But if you realize why you're here, your cancer has done its job, or your illness has done its job and can disappear. Mm-hmm. So that's what I learned sickness is. It's nothing more than a messenger from your higher self.
I have heard the term that in life, it is a journey. I mean, the word journey's been very, very overused at the moment, but it is a journey, and it's like, in the music, in anything you do, it's the journey that actually is more exciting than actually getting to the pinnacle.
But the point is, the journey has a purpose. And this is what I've learned from my experiences, Del. Why are we here? Right? This is the way my guides explain to me why we are here. Okay. In the beginning, there was God, the Sun, the Source, the Buddha, the great central consciousness. Whatever you want to call it, it was a singular consciousness. Okay? Now, this singular consciousness knows everything except one thing. And that one thing is being separate from itself. So how does the one single consciousness understand that that idea of being separate from itself? The ego. The ego was created by that singular consciousness so that it could separate a part of itself from itself and forget who it was, so that it could understand what it means to be separate from the self. The problem was that we, being those bits of ego that were cast out to experience this for the highest mind, forgot so badly where they came from that ego became so strong that it didn't want to return. It didn't want to remember who it was. And this is where we are now. And this is why there's so much conflict in the world. Because those little bits of ego have to remember now where they came from. These epidemics in the world, the floods, the droughts, the wars, this is all those little bits of ego fighting to return to the source. They just don't understand why. So until we all wake up and realize we are God, those conflicts will continue. I ask people to imagine this. Can you imagine the earth with no people? It would be a wonderfully peaceful place. And it's not a negative thought, it's a positive thought. Because once we have experienced our God self once again and have returned to the source, Mother Earth has fulfilled her contract. And she can then ascend to the source. So essentially, we as people are holding her here until we remember our God self. That's what I've come to understand from all my experience. It is now time to return to the source. There's no such thing as death. There is only life. There is only love. And that central sun is the love. That is who we are. And it's now time for us to return to that source.
The two messages I normally like to sort of spread is that we're not individuals, we're all one. An ant is part of us. We are one. There is no separation.
I agree.
And we need to look at that. So before you abuse somebody, you need to be able to say, hang on, you're basically abusing yourself because you are.
Exactly.
We are all one. And the other thing I tell a lot of people is that in life should never be boring, because in life you need to find your purpose. And it's like you're going into the garden looking for, say, a four-leaf petal. That is the journey. That is an amazing journey to do.
Yeah.
But people go, they want to get there today. They want to get there yesterday. Whereas enjoy the journey and jump on the stepping stones to get there. Each stepping stone has a purpose, and that's exactly what you're saying.
That's right. Look, there's only one truth, and that truth is love. Okay? Hate is an ego-driven emotion or mindset, whatever you want to call it. Love is all there is. And that love is whatever you want to call it, God, the great central sun. And it's our mission to return to that source. And that will end suffering. And that's the point of being here on earth, is now to forget this ego-driven world and return to the source. That's all we're here to do. This is why there's so much conflict, because so many people still want to ignore it. That's the problem.
And a lot of people actually don't understand, like they go, oh, he's egoistic, he's this and that. They don't understand that we were given ego because that was the point that we actually had to have a little bit of ego so we actually could make the separation from our mother.
That's right.
But there's a lot of people that go, hey, I enjoy this. I'm actually hanging on to this and I'm actually going to make it bigger.
You're absolutely right. It's like a drug. It's like taking heroin. It's like, oh man, this me is awesome, man. But it's not you. It's not the real you. It's the you that's being deluded. And that's what, you're literally right. It's like a drug that you've taken, this ego drug, that thinks, I am the center of the universe. But it's not you. It's the drug that's telling you that. It's the ego that's telling you that.
I have people coming to me saying, have you tried ayahuasca? Have you done this? And I'm looking at them and I thought, you are the people that should be the last people that should be using, because it's just, you should not be doing it. Even when I'm doing healing, as I said before, the healing, they come here not to be healed. You know, they might have had a deep trauma. It's not for that. It's because they want to see where they can go with it or what they can experience. Trippers.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They don't realise that by taking drugs, they're actually shattering their aura. And the high they experience is this ego-driven high. It's not a real spiritual high. It's this 5-minute... And that's why heroin addicts never get the same high ever again. They get that first high and then they can't give it up because they're always looking for that first high. But it's not a true high. It's an ego-driven high. If they learn to meditate, they can get much, much higher. Because when you learn the true form of meditation for you, everybody's not the same, you can find your true form of meditation. There are thousands of forms of meditation. Meditation has one meaning: focus. That's all meditation means. It means focusing on something. And if you focus to the center of yourself with love, that is the greatest high you'll ever experience. Because you'll understand that there's nothing can touch you. There's nothing can hurt you. Death is not real. Death is a delusion. Okay? The greatest high is your God self. And you are here, your purpose here on earth is to express that God self to everyone around you. Like you said before, Del, everyone you meet is a reflection of you. If somebody doesn't like you or they upset you, they're reflecting something in you that you don't like about yourself. And instead of fighting them or shouting at them, you should, hang on, why don't I like that person? Because there's something about them, their energy, that I don't like in myself. That's when you go into meditation and you work on that, you focus on that. And once you can clear that, you'll no longer have a problem with that person because you cleared it in yourself. So the greatest power we have here on earth is meditation. I cannot stress that enough.
The bit that we were talking about before on the actual all being one, there was, in my studies, I had actually come across where, I can't remember who it was, mentioned that if we are constantly against, say, a particular race, in your next life, you can actually come back in that exact race that you hated to see how they felt to be disliked.
That's right.
And I heard that and I went, wow.
Why do you think there's so much conflict in the Middle East? Because they're coming back to bearing the karma, the grudges of their past existences. You know why they're hating and killing those people? Because they're hating themselves. Mm-hmm. And they see what they hate in those people because that reflects what they hate in themselves. They just... My mum goes on about the teachings of Islam and that, Muhammad said, you must kill all non-believers. Well, what does that mean? Who are the non-believers? The believers that don't believe in hate. The believers who believe in love. Are they the non-believers? Who are the non-believers? The non-believers are the ones who want to hurt another person. They're the true non-believers. The ones who want to love everybody, they're the true believers. You know what I mean? It's like Christ said, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Because...
Absolutely. I've actually, if you see the way I live, my family think I'm crazy, but they're actually moving that way because they call me the catch the cockroach person or catch the fly or something. We don't kill in our house.
Me too. We're the same.
Yeah, because you don't know. You might put your hand up and say, in my next life, I want to be a cockroach.
And the Buddhists believe that. The Buddhists believe that you can be reincarnated as that ant or that cockroach or that beetle that you squashed. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, not everybody believes that, but it's a pretty good analogy. That beetle, that cockroach, is part of you. It is part of your God self.
Even when you see a dead dog or something dead, it's not dead, because if it was dead, and this is Wayne Dwyer says it, it's not dead. That's because right. If it was dead, it wouldn't decompose.
That's right.
So it's
that's what I learned from my near-death experience. There is no such thing as death. Death is a delusion that we've all been brainwashed by. Age is a delusion that we've all been brainwashed by, because we believe that we grow old. You look at the ascended masters, they never grow old. They shine like the sun. They can present themselves at whatever age they want to, because they live the divine light. And the divine light is truth. And the divine light is love. And everybody's mission on earth now should be to focus on being that divine light. And how do you do that? Through meditation.
That word's come up probably about 10 times in the last 2 minutes. So what were the sort of things that you were doing in meditation?
Okay, meditation, like I say, is nothing more than focus. Now, as you know, we have chakras in our body, okay? Base, spleen, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown chakra. There's a few smaller chakras in between that I like to focus on too, because I find it useful for myself. But the main thing is that by focusing on spinning your chakras faster and faster and faster you can imagine your chakras spinning, the more and more your vibration is raising. And the more and more your chakras are spinning clearly and brightly, the healthier you will be. Because your body, and it's been proven by science, is nothing more than energy at a molecular level. Okay, this is what astrophysicists and all these scientists are now understanding, that there is nothing more in the universe than energy. That's all there is. And your body is energy. And the more that you meditate on focusing the cell, every cell in your body shining like the sun, that is meditation. The brighter you can imagine your every cell in your body being, that brings through your higher self.
So you would just imagine each chakra, say, starting from your base all the way up, or that's continuing, correct. Or just one separate?
Start at the base,
yes.
Because the base is the heaviest. What I do, I actually start in the earth. I imagine that in the center of the earth is a golden ball, a golden sun. And that golden light can flood up through your feet, flood up through your legs, and the gold mixes with your base chakra red, and that mixes up with the orange, and the gold keeps moving up and cleansing and balancing your solar plexus, then up through the heart, spinning and shining, the heart getting bigger, up through your throat and through your third eye and out through the top of your head to the great central sun in the universe.
And you would do that daily?
Yeah.
And how long would you do that for?
As long as I felt the need to.
Okay.
I used to meditate every night. I don't meditate every night now because constantly through the day I'm thinking about this now. So at night usually I'm so knackered after work I go to sleep. But before I go to sleep, I imagine my chakras spinning. Sometimes when I was learning this, I would meditate for 2 or 3 hours, and I would have to physically put a golden ball around my body to close the energy down to get to sleep. But it's the most powerful thing you can do. Your body is your temple. That's the best way I can describe it. The body is the temple of the soul. And the more you can focus on the shining inside your body and every cell in your body shining like the sun, that will put you on your path.
So when you actually do the spinning and the meditation, you wouldn't have to shut anything down, or you just leave them spinning?
What I do, basically, I say the Lord's Prayer, and that opens up your chakras, okay? And then you can imagine whatever you like. You can imagine the energy coming up and washing up through your body, and a waterfall of energy washing down through your body. You can move in both directions because energy moves in every direction, okay? And you can send love to Mother Earth and love to everyone around you. And at the end of your meditation, when I do a group meditation, I always close the circle with 3 ohms. And we do this 3 times, and that helps just to steady and balance the energy back down into your normal energy field. You can also imagine like a golden ball around your body just to sort of seal you in while you're doing your daily exercises, your daily work. But that's how I usually do it.
That's beautiful. Okay, I'm enjoying this.
Me too.
You're teaching me a lot of stuff. Isn't it amazing? You think you got it all, and then it's like, nah, I don't know anything.
Well, everyone has a different perspective of the God self, right? Your opinions, your experiences are your perspective of the God self. Mine are my perspective of the God self. It all comes from the same God self. But I put it this way. Every one of us is a cell in the God self. We're all part of the same being, but we're all one part of that God self.
That's like when people say to me, what's your opinion? Well, I basically say, well, do you really want my opinion? Because it's my opinion from my experiences.
That's right.
Why don't you, if you've already spoken to Christo and Yuri and Andre and somebody else, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 opinions.
That's right.
That's 4 opinions. That's actually confusing that's another 4 on top of what you believe. So do you really want mine? That's just another confusion. Why don't you just go look within and just go, okay, what is
Precisely.
the answer?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's why meditation is so important, because you will only find your answers within you. No one can teach you what your purpose is. No one can tell you your truth. Your truth is inside you. And that's the same with every individual on earth.
Okay, so that's really exciting stuff. So 27 years later, fast forwarded, where are we now with what you're doing, and are you meditating? You're doing
I meditate,
classes?
like I say, I meditate constantly. My wife sometimes asks me to do meditation groups. I'm happy to do that if anyone requests a meditation group. My book's out there. If anyone wants a copy, by all means. And I tell people, look, if you have any questions about the book or about anything else, just contact me. I'm more than happy to.
What's your email address, Christo?
Christo Dehn.
Christo Dehn. I can post that as well.
At AOL.com.
Okay, cool. It is a really good book. Christo, you mentioned that you will be looking at doing potentially some meditation classes, or
anyone who would like to get a meditation group together within your sort of the Hills, Windsor, Richmond area, I'm happy to join anybody for a night or more. All they do is have to just ask me to come down. I'm happy to sit in and do a meditation, give a meditation, or participate in something. It's entirely up to them. I leave it open to the universe. Mm-hmm. Like I say, Yudi organises a lot of things because she's very active in the Japanese community, and she often asks me to go and do meditations for her friends.
So Yuri is you're doing a few courses, or you've actually studied reflexology, aromatherapy, and tarot and access bar. And Yuri's actually Japanese, and she's been with Christo how many years now?
19 years.
19 years. 19
married
years.
bliss.
Yeah. So we would like to in the near future to be doing a podcast with Yuri. I'm pretty drawn with the access bar, and she might be able to give us a demonstration on what access bar is, because
Access bars.
Access bars. Yeah. So apparently it's cranial work, and you actually are touching. Yeah. Yeah. Touching to points. Okay. Yeah. So we would be looking forward to that podcast. Christo, so have you had any callbacks? Nothing? Everything's clear? 100%?
I haven't been to see a doctor about my tumour in 20 years.
And no one's ever called you, contacted you and said, hey, how are you going?
Never.
Man, we need to know. We need to document your story.
No.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing, and that really astounds me because, like I said, there's never been anyone who's survived this tumour that I'm aware of that they could tell me about. So it does surprise me a bit, but, you know, doctors are funny people. Who knows why?
Wow. Well, that is an amazing story, and I'd like to thank Christo and Yuri for coming here and doing our first podcast. And I'm not pushing the book. I've read the book, and this book is very highly on the top of my list, which I always read. And if you have a look at my book, it's Christo's book. I paid for it. But it's still his book. It's his words. It's his love and hearts in this. And if you have a look at all the bits in here, are all the bits that I actually like to, and I would never dare to write in this book because I don't know if he'll give me another book.
On the cover of the book that's Glastonbury Abbey in England, by the way.
Okay.
So like I say, it's the heart chakra of the world.
Okay. And do you remember doing this?
Yep.
And it says, I can't remember what it said. What did it say? It said in cosmic love, something to Dell. Yeah. So thank you for watching, and namaste.
Thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, you're the best. Thank you. Man, you were going off, man. Oh, yeah, man, keep going.
My pleasure. High energy.